Okay, what's up, everybody? Are y'all really hype? Are you hype? Let's go. Okay, I will admit these types of mics are so awkward for me. I feel like Tony Robbins, like a motivational speaker or whatever. Have you ever seen him clap, by the way? Yeah, exactly. He claps like this. It's so weird. Or Nicole Kidman, have you seen the gif of her clapping? It's so weird. I promise I won't do that. Anyways, we have about an hour together. Okay. So we are going to talk about something I hope you all are dealing with and feeling, because this is like a pretty difficult time right now for creatives. And we're going to talk about like getting new business. Does that sound good? We're going to talk about a little bit about getting new business, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about like how to scale, like not too quickly, because that oftentimes happens, and then you end up like having to lay people off and stuff like that. It gets really awkward. So I'm going to try to impart a little bit of like how to essentially grow well and profitably. Okay, sound good? Okay, so a couple of things. Number one is some of the stuff I'm going to talk about and like ask you to think about is going to feel potentially weird. Just kind of trust the process a little bit. If you have a laptop, great. If you have a notepad, great. Get it out, because I am gonna like have you write things down, think about it, all that kind of stuff. Number two is I really want you to just kind of sit back and relax. Does that sound good? All right, awesome. Here's what I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that in our 60 minutes together, you have like a much firmer understanding of like how to grow your business. If I haven't done that, please let me know at the end, because I got to re-workshop this workshop, okay? Sound good? All right. So this is essentially the agenda. We're going to spend a couple of minutes talking about myself. And then we're going to talk a little bit about like three main buckets. Number one is going to be about attracting high-value clients. Number two is about this idea of like streamlining your services, right? And then number three is like how to build like a scalable growth model. And yes, these numbers, if you add them all up, do not add it up to 60 minutes. I know that. That's on purpose, because every time I do a workshop like this, we always end up spending a little extra time on something, or there's a person in the room that asks more questions than I anticipate, okay? So, but my goal is to get you out of here on time. All right, a little bit about me. I run an organization called Useful School. It's the world's first pay-what-you-can online design school for creatives of color. I also do a lot of other things. I am based in Brooklyn. Any other Brooklyn people in the house? Yeah. You traveled all the way here for this workshop? That's awesome. In addition to Useful School, I also run a freelance design practice. Just so you know, I've worked on the client side, I've worked on the agency side, I've worked at startups. I've like seen everything happen at various types of junctures. So where I'm gonna like have you think about in this next like workshop is like how does a client might think about what you're pitching, how you might think as a client if you're a client, and be able to sniff out the BS that sometimes can happen in like legal contracts, stuff like that. So no matter if you're a client or an agency, I just like want to let you know I've been there, I've done that. So if you have more questions beyond that, I am down. Okay? I've done a bunch of other stuff, but let me skip this slide. I mostly focus on art direction. I mostly focus on creative direction, but I have been hired for like coaching and workshops and things like that. And some of the places I worked, I started my career at White & Kennedy. I had a bunch of different clients. Most recently, I rebranded one of the largest nonprofits called the Ford Foundation. This is just some examples of my work. Some product design, some branding. I used to work at Hyperact, if anybody's familiar with Hyperact. It's an amazing agency. They love it. Okay, cool. All right. Y'all ready to get into the workshop? All right, sweet. So get out pen, paper, get out your laptops. We are not going to be on a shared Figma file, because some of this work that I'm going to be asking you to think about, like you probably want to keep it to yourself. If you don't have a notebook, if you don't have a notepad, if you don't have a computer, it's totally fine. Just bust out your phone, write it on notes. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to spend a few minutes on attracting high-value clients. Okay. What I want you to write down in 2 minutes or less is describe your ideal client. Hi, online people. I'm checking the chat as we're going on, so I'll be able to engage with you all as well. If you're online, feel free to bust out a notepad, Figma file. Okay, ideal client, okay? For me, my ideal client is they have their shit figured out. They know the budget before the conversation even happens, okay? How often have you been on like a second or third date with a client and they still don't know their budget, right? You spend all this time nodding heads, doing the vibe check, blah, 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 and then you say like, hey, so what's your budget? They're like, we haven't figured that out yet. Wee woo. Like, that's an alarm for me. Like, I typically cut and run from those types of opportunities. It just usually doesn't work out that way. Some people, of course, want to do a chemistry check and something like that, but you need to find a time like for yourself that you just want to limit that. Because all too often as creatives, especially creatives of color, people who are part of historically excluded groups, tend to feel imposter syndrome and don't want to like initiate that kind of thing, okay? So have the numbers figured out, okay? Number 2, they have a very clear challenge, right? Number 3, a fair timeline. Some of my favorite clients are ones that have high budget and they're not in a rush. They want to be very intentional, okay? And for me, that works for my lifestyle, okay? I have ADHD, I'm proud of it. I was diagnosed about 2 years ago. And for me or other neurodivergent thinkers, we might need a little bit extra time to think about something. I also want to, when I pitch work, I try to work with as many folks as possibly to create that work and show as many different options as possible, okay? And for that type of work, I need to be able to take my time because I don't want to leave any stone unturned, okay? At Hyperact, we only show 2 design directions. That's it, no more, no less. Why 2? What's that?
The Hicks law, you don't want to give them too many options.
Okay, Hicks law, you don't want to give them too many options. Clients love choice, but 3 is like a little too many, okay? That's a little bit why we like to do that. Okay, number 4, they're nice people, okay? Number 5, for me, an ideal client wants to push creativity as far as possible. Before I sign a contract, for me, I do the legwork of figuring out what that mood board is because I don't want to sign up for a certain amount of budget with us like just not having that conversation only to realize that they're expecting like an Apple level keynote or something, right? That's going to burn so much budget, right? So have those conversations. You're going to save yourself so much time and energy if you're able to do some of that front-loaded work. Does that make sense? Okay, so really the only things that I like to do as like upfront work is ask them, where's the creative bar for you? Like, where do you want to go? Okay? And if they're able to push creative, but have the budget to back it up, that's a good signal. But if they don't have that budget, but they expect like me to move mountains, that's not a good client. Okay? All right. Number 2, write this down. Where do your clients, both current and future, spend their time? Where do they spend their time? Online, offline, be as specific as possible. Okay, so a couple of examples of places where my clients spend a lot of their time. On email. Number 2, LinkedIn. Okay, and number 3, Harvard Business Review. Okay, how do I know that? Because I asked them. Where do you spend your time? Okay? Next, okay, how will you reach them? Thinking about those 2 questions from previous, where do they spend their time and what your ideal client is, how will you reach them? Spend about a minute or 2 thinking about this. And we're not looking for perfect answers here. Okay, just jotting notes. Cool, you bring up a couple good things. I tend to caution folks, especially designers, from getting on mailing lists or purchasing mailing lists. Sometimes those could be scams or something like that. But a lot of the other things that you did mention are really great.
There's tools that you can then, you got to go through and you have to vet, you have to look at each one, look at,
Yeah.
Sell, who are they,
Totally. I would just watch that, because on the other side, thinking from the client side, they're gonna be like, how'd you get my email? And every single time I reach out cold, people are like, hey, how'd you find me? All that kind of, not in an antagonistic way, but you're always gonna get that question, right? And so as a designer, especially somebody who might be a little bit more introverted, maybe there's some more introverted folks in the audience, you might wanna be able to like not have to broach that topic, right? I would much rather say like, hey, I guessed it, or I'm a big fan, I found it on LinkedIn, or whatever, right?
LinkedIn is better, I think.
Totally, exactly. How many of y'all post on LinkedIn? Like half the room? What's the other half? What are y'all doing? It's kind of a meme. LinkedIn is kind of a meme, I get it. And especially, don't even get me started on the short videos. Like, if you're really busy creative, how are you having time to create short videos? But that's a conversation for another time, okay? Check out LinkedIn, think about where your clients are, and meet them where they are. Make sense? All right, next thing. What changes do you need to make in order to attract them? Go for quality over quantity here. Just one thing, two things. All right. A couple of ideas here, okay? Feel free to steal them, great artists steal, whatever, okay? Number one, make sure that when you're reaching out to a potential client, okay, or talking to them in person, whatever, what have you, make sure you're messaging to them about their exact needs. Every client, in my experience, always claims that they know their like users or customers well. Okay? So a question like, hey, how well do you know your customers? It's almost always going to be met with, oh, I know them so well, like I'm one of them, blah, 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 blah. We've heard that time and time again. Then you get into the actual design phase, and then you realize you don't have those questions answered. Then it screws up the timeline, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So ask really, really incisive questions. Okay? Where do your customers or users base shop? What time do they wake up in the morning? Et cetera, right? So I'll give you an example. When I was working at White & Kennedy, I was on the Equinox account, luxury boozy gym, we don't sweat, we glow, like all that kind of stuff, right? And we knew that a lot of folks woke up at 4 in the morning to go to the gym on a Saturday morning at 5 a.m. And that insight, only by talking to people who are their customer base and realizing that behavior, were we able to craft one of the best campaigns and most popular tweets, et cetera, in history, okay? So really, really ask your clients really, really incisive questions, and guess what? If they don't know the answers to those things, you charge for that, okay? All right, number two, I would highly recommend securing speaking engagements, okay? For example, some of my clients might be on Harvard Business Review. How might you be a guest writer or be interviewed or something on one of those blogs, okay? On one of those websites. It's really difficult to do that, okay? But it's worth it. Okay, 1 second. I would also recommend reaching out to people on Shark Tank. I got 2 gigs, full-time gigs, from Shark Tank companies. I literally watched the episode, I emailed them, I said, hey, your website sucks. Can you hire me to do like kind of a rebrand and a redesign? Do it, it works. It's worked for me, okay? Also, updating your LinkedIn profile. How often have you all been updating your LinkedIn profiles? Let's say somebody, let's see, in the last week in preparation for the Webflow conference. Raise your hands. Okay. How about in the last, within the last 3 months? Okay. What about it hasn't been, let's say more than a year ago, right? There's always those people, okay? I'm especially looking at you. Look at your LinkedIn profile from the perspective of your client. You'll be surprised on what changing your headline could do, your about me statement. You might have some really killer work that you're like, oh my goodness, yeah, I gotta update my website, I gotta update my case studies. Just post on LinkedIn. Okay, make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, what other ideas have you all tried? Any volunteers? Anybody feel like they have a really exciting idea?
I don't know how exciting it is, but what we figured out is we sell to chief marketing officers, and they're all on a WhatsApp group here in the Bay Area. And so the best source of leads has been giving things that are capital to our clients for them to feel good sharing in that WhatsApp that then drives everyone else to ask who did that.
I love it. And for the folks that are online, one of our participants, Chris, had actually mentioned that a lot of their essentially clients, CMOs, are actually on a WhatsApp group, so tapping into that. I love that. That's a really good idea, is potentially like you all curating your own network, okay? Maybe like running a Slack group, running a WhatsApp, inviting potential clients, et cetera, which is amazing. Obviously, you don't want to have a Slack devolve into everyone spamming and saying, hey, I'm open to work, yeah, I'm open to work. But the nice thing about you potentially running a network or something like that is you're able to control that. Sound good? I love that. You had a question earlier.
Yeah, you mentioned securing speaking engagements, and I'm just curious as like a, freelancer or agency, what that would look like. Yeah.
So the question for the online folks who weren't able to hear is essentially how do you secure speaking engagements? Is that right?
Yeah.
A couple of my talks have been right place, right time. Okay, I will totally admit that. But the majority of them, including the Type Directors Club, the brand new conference, et cetera, is I had like kind of a unique story. So let me explain. The brand new conference, has anybody been to a brand new conference before? It's a branding conference. It's incredible. Okay, a few of you. Okay, they're actually having theirs in the last like couple of days, I believe. Brand new conference, most of the attendees are actual designers. And so for me to stand up and say like, hey, here's how a rebrand happens, but from a client perspective, was really interesting. Make sense? So Wyden and Kennedy kind of taught me this. When the world zigs, you zag, right? So if there's a design conference where everyone's talking about their amazing case study or work or whatever, you buck the trend and you say, okay, let me think about something else that I could potentially offer, okay? That's like one way to do it. Think about that like unique pitch or unique story. Everyone has at least one, and just go out to the different conferences and actually like make it happen. And if there isn't one place that accepts you or whatever, because some of the bigger conferences are very hard to access, right? For many folks who aren't in like that speaker circuit, just create your own damn event. And you'll if it's useful to the community, then people will show up. Yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, what's up?
Not very exciting, but I use my days, my dental occupation as a chance to promote my business in Webflow. So a patient comes in, they ask me what they're doing, and I tell them like I'm, having a web design business also, and I'm finding clients this way.
Great.
Because of word of mouth.
Great. How many of y'all's business is like your revenue is 50% or more based on Webflow? Cool. And then the other folks who didn't answer are basically 50% or less. Okay, cool. So about half the room. Okay, cool. Great. So hopefully that advice is useful to some other folks too.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Totally. Okay, now what I want you to do is look at all of your ideas that you just wrote down. Okay, some potential changes or et cetera, and circle one of them that you're gonna promise yourself you're gonna get done in the next 2 weeks. I know it's scary, but talk is cheap. Okay, so just circle one of the ideas that you either heard or wrote down that you're going to promise yourself that you're going to do in the next 2 weeks. And if you need an accountability buddy, I will be your accountability buddy. Okay, next. We're going to talk about streamlining your services. You ready? Okay. In a minute or less, answer, what problems do you / your company solve? And don't just write, we build websites. Okay, any volunteers want to share? Go for it.
I help people build credibility by showcasing their product and personality.
Okay. Can you be more specific?
Yeah, through website design and branding.
Cool. Anybody else?
We empower companies or marketing teams to bring their ideas or test their ideas into market quickly and through the website development, through Webflow only. Basically test things out there, what sells, show their product, and convert.
Great. Cool. So a little trick of the trade. What I like to do. How many of y'all are like struggling to like put this into like kind of a client-facing verbiage? Right? Okay, so some of y'all. What I recommend is literally just jotting down the notes, throw them into ChatGPT, and see what pops out. And see how short you can make that pitch. Okay? This is especially helpful for those who might be neurodivergent. Maybe English is they're not as comfortable with. Okay? They're maybe not, classically trained copywriters. Okay? All right, next. What are your differentiators? Spend a minute. You need at least one. Okay, so for those who are online, I'm noticing that you don't hear the questions or answers. So from here on out, I promise you that I'll repeat the question, as well as the answers that are submitted. Okay, so for me, personality, my personality. Hi. Right? Oftentimes it's you. Most people can go to other places to get potentially something kind of similar if you're just writing purely on personality. So my Zoom background is lit. I've got great lighting. Okay? Watch the quality of your camera. If you have a DSLR somewhere in your apartment or home or something, or need to buy one for cheap, use that. It's super easy. Connect it to your USB and bada bing, bada boom, you're done. Okay? Have a great Zoom background. Okay? What color do y'all think my Zoom background is? It's yellow. It's a plain yellow background, and people always comment, like, oh my God, what? Okay? Do that because the quality, okay, you're basically going to be dating them for a little while, right? You might as well have that interaction experience, be good, okay? So think about updating your audio, your video. What clothes are you wearing? How do you show your personality, okay? So personality is a huge one. Number 2, are you effective? Do you have a proven track record of it, okay? When we're at HyperAct, we're one of the OGs in the branding and design space for nonprofits and social justice focused organizations, so we leaned on that, okay? Are you quick? How many of y'all do you think y'all are really quick at design, and how many of y'all are actually saying that on your website or your pitch deck? Okay, a couple of y'all. That's great. Okay? But what's the result of being quick?
Not sloppy. You are sloppy if you're quick.
Okay, you could be sloppy if you're quick. Okay, yes, that is one of the issues, is if you're claim that you're quick and you try to be as quick, you might, mix some bugs, things like that, for sure. But what are the positive benefits of being quick? Benefit is not feature. The feature is being quick, but what's the benefit of being quick?
Speed to market.
Speed to market.
From you, it looks like the reaction from the client, whoa, that fast?
Sure. Yeah. But what is the client worried about? Okay, cost, budget, yeah, sure. What? Time for what? Turnaround time, because why? They want to ship why?
So that users get what they want.
They want to what? They want to impress their boss. They want to impress their boss. How many of y'all are saying you're going to look good to your boss on your website or in your pitch deck? Okay, one. It's always you. Okay. How many other people are saying that? Okay, that's huge. Because most of the time, you're probably not working with the CEO or the executive director or something like that. You're working with somebody else who reports to them and wants to make them look good. Okay? Another one, which I loved, is that they might have some sort of reason why they have to get launched by the end of October. Okay, we sell whatever, we need to be ready to go because of blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's the benefit of being quick. What's another benefit? Yes, turnaround. Yep.
I know I keep talking, but there's another benefit, which is that we sell, which is it's like a software development iterative cycle benefit that comes from being fast. If you don't try to be perfect, do something, test it, get the results, do something that with create.
Yes, I love this. Okay? You sell in a version 1 of the website. That's not perfect, but you've already pitched the perfect version. So they're like, we've already seen that perfect version in the Figma, but you've only given us V1. Retainer. Okay? You get recurring business. Okay? Great. Maybe you have an expertise in something specific. Okay? All right. Next, write down what services do you now offer. Okay, write down all of them. And I want you to put a big X through the ones that you can remove, that you no longer want to do. They're either not profitable, they give you a ton of headaches, they don't pay enough, which is related to profitability, but it's different. It's not a differentiator, it's not a core competency of yours, so whenever you do it, it's kind of like at a C level, but you know that there's another person down the street that's also an expert in Webflow that can do it like at an A level, things like that. Okay? And then secondly, what services could you add? Yo, the chat is lit. Thank you all. I feel like a Twitch streamer. This is awesome. What's up, Rocky? What's up, Musa? What's up, Zenergy? Okay, who here has heard of Collins? One of the best in the game. Have you seen their website recently? Have you read any interviews that they've done recently? They're doing everything. What did they start? What is their core competency? What are they known for? Design, branding. Yep. What are they doing now? In addition to that, they're doing financial planning. They're doing a whole mess of stuff. Check out their interview if you haven't seen. Okay? It's on Fastco or something. Very easy to find. Okay? They're expanding, and why are they doing that? Why are they adding those services?
Because their clients already need those things.
Because their clients need them. And how do you think they figure that out? They probably ask them really incisive questions. Okay? So they've gone from a branding agency into a transformation agency. Very different things. Those are two very, very different things. Sure, they're some of the best in the business in branding and visual branding, but they're now doing a whole mess of other stuff. Okay? HyperAct's website. Okay? Very specific. The service that are offered for, when I was design director there, much more specific. It's about like discovering and helping you clarify your voice, and then it's about how you show yourself in the world, mostly visually. That's it. And you could argue that's branding, but it's also positioning themselves a little bit more strategically. Okay? So it's two examples that are very, very different. Okay? Okay. So here's a couple of other tidbits for you, and then we'll move on. Okay. How can you clarify your messaging on your website and other touch points? Okay. How many of y'all have work on your portfolio that you're like, yeah, exactly. Yes, we all have that. Just remove that project. Guess what? Because if clients see that you can do that specific thing, they're going to ask you to do that thing, and you're going to just get in this vicious cycle of doing stuff over and over again that you don't really like. Okay, so make sure that the work that you're showing in your portfolio is the type of work that you want to be doing. That also means if you want to expand your services, you can't just say, oh, I can also do that. You have to show them. So you might have to be building stuff just as like just a case study. That's just a concept. Make sense? Okay. All right. You also want to decide if you want to continue spinning your wheels and burning time on getting new projects and new clients versus a retainer. Okay? So think about your favorite clients. Okay? Think about your favorite clients and reach out to them. How many of y'all have reached out to some of your past clients that you haven't worked for or with in like 2+ years, and you've actually reached out to them recently in the next 6 months? Amazing. Okay, that's great. But for the rest of y'all, the other 75% of y'all, I want to challenge y'all to do that. I've gotten 3 contracts this year alone from just doing that. It was just an email. It was me saying, hey, I loved working with you. I know we did some great work together. I'm open and available. Let's chat, okay? 1 second. Then the other thing is, do you want to offer a subscription service, or do you want to be a little bit more a la carte? Okay? Do you want to have a chef table menu where they're paying you $300 a head for an amazing 3-course meal? Tax and tip is included? Or do you want to be charging maybe $30 and just having that revenue continue for 6 or 7 different meals? Okay? How many of y'all have office hours for clients? Maybe 3 of y'all? Guess what? You could charge for office hours. Okay?
What are you doing in office hours?
You're answering their questions. Okay? You're basically saying, hey, I have a limited time based on the amount of time that the amount of budget that you're giving me in a typical contract, but because I love you so much, you could use those words, because I love you so much, okay, and I want to help solve some stuff, I will have Friday from lunchtime, like 12 to 1 or 12 to 2, time for you to come with like any other requests you might have. Okay? It's a great way to like discover what other challenges that they're having, keeping each other accountable, okay? All of that kind of stuff. What's up?
Add that it's a great way to also have them just like remember you. So clients you've had on projects or retainers previously, if you have office hours, for example, they may not in that moment want to hire you for a full project, but they will have questions. Like they want your strategic insights. So they will pay you for like an hour or 2 of your time to then usually that also keeps you top of mind for when they do have a larger project that comes next. So it's just a great way to also keep up the relationship while providing value like regularly.
So for the online folks who wasn't able to hear that, was amazing. It kind of falls into a couple themes. One of the benefits is it allows you to be more memorable, and number 2, it allows you to kind of hunt and find a little bit of potential other opportunities to like work with them a little bit more in the future. It's a great discovery tool. Okay? So as a client I had previously, work is about to launch. We didn't know, or we didn't have kind of budgeted or scoped out in the beginning to give them a custom typeface, but they loved the custom logo word mark so much, we were able to end up discovering like, hey, this actually be a really good thing for you to do. Once we started like understanding who's designing your website, once we started like asking those specific questions, they're like, I don't know, do you want to help with that? Okay, great. Let me charge you to find really amazing Webflow templates. Okay? All right. What other ideas have you all tried about streamlining services? Any volunteers? Yeah.
So just 2 years ago, we switched to a subscription model. You mentioned retainers versus project-based. And for us, it's been amazing because before it was feast or famine. We'd get a big paycheck, and then we'd have to go find another job and get a big paycheck. But now it's just a steady growth where every single month we're getting
So that's been great for us. We really like that model.
Great. So somebody mentioned in the room that subscription services has been really great for like stabilizing revenue. I love that for you. I love that for us. Okay. Same sitch as the previous theme. Circle something that we just talked about that you're going to promise yourself to do in the next 2 weeks. It could be a really small thing. It could be a really small thing. Guess what? When I was running conversion rate optimization for a previous client, just changing the copy on one button was a difference in 317% conversion rate. Okay? So these changes that you might be making to your business, to your website, whatever, something even as simple as just a small copy line could be really impactful. Okay? So don't think that you have to move mountains here. Just one thing. Okay. Ready to move on? We have one more section and we'll move on to Q&A. Okay? All right, next thing, scaling your model. Scaling your model. You got a minute. What parts of your current process are easy and or efficient? Okay. So I mentioned that I had ADHD earlier, right? I said that, right?
Yep.
Okay. What's the benefit of that?
High performance. High performance.
High performance, specifically during what part of the process?
When you do something that you like.
Okay, would I do something I like? Okay, something more specific. Think about the traditional stages of creating work. Iteration, okay? Coming up with a lot of brainstorming. I can brainstorm like an MF. I am so good at brainstorming. Okay? Guess what? I'm also really good at impromptu speech. For some reason, just the pixels are firing. Okay? So that's a superpower of mine. But the internal narrative I told myself, as somebody who thought I had ADHD and didn't get diagnosed until later, was I thought it was a hindrance, not a benefit. Okay? So think about your identity, where you come from, your culture identity, your experience, and treat that not as a limiting belief, but as an actual superpower. Okay? So for me, it's brainstorming. So when I'm maybe subcontracting work out, working with clients, whatever, my brainstorm time period is usually a little bit shorter than most. I spend way less time on the brainstorming compared to some other places, but guess what? That allows me to have way more time for execution. Okay? You might be the opposite, and that's okay. But just think about what parts just naturally come easy to you. Okay? Maybe you can make those into recurring revenue some way. Okay? But don't do the shitty thing and say, hey, I'm not really good at QA, and then just artificially just be bad at QA just so you can make retain your client. I know there's some of you really smart Alex out there that are going to do that. Don't do that. Don't trick your clients. Okay? Next thing, what parts of your process are clunky? There's always something. "30 seconds. What parts of the process are clunky? Is it the brainstorming? Is it the quote-unquote user research? Is it the mood boarding? Is it pitching your ideas in the beginning and getting them sold in? Is it taking feedback? Taking feedback is hard. Is it shipping? Is it iterating? Is it selling new parts? You know, whatever. There's a ton of other parts of the process. Just write down one of them. Okay, one very common part of the process that's very clunky is educating clients on how to give feedback. Hey, Ratish, can you make it pop more? Hey, Ratish, can you make it bigger? Right? Like those types of like really unhelpful pieces of feedback, right? So what I've started doing is actually during the process when I'm pitching a client, I will actually talk them through how I expect to receive feedback. And I actually use it as an opportunity to educate them, okay? So that's what I found. Very clunky part of the process, but that was my way of solving that problem. Make sense? And clients, guess what? They're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, like, make it pop or make it bigger or whatever. Make it bold. Like, what is that? Can you make it bolder? What does that mean? Okay, this isn't a typeface. Okay, so then when I'm able to educate clients, when I was able to educate clients, then I'm more differentiated. Okay, I'm less of like a ticket taker, service designer, what have you, and I'm more of like, kind of like a collaborator. Make sense? Sound good? Okay. Number 3, what personality or principles do you want to express? Okay, think about yourself. What's your personality? Don't try to change yourself. Whatever your personality is, I love that for you. What are the principles you want to express? Like, is there a type of tone or style of your work? And please don't use words like clean. Like, what does that mean? Oh man, this design is so clean. What does that mean? Okay, if you're really introverted and you're like pretty averse to meetings, guess what? You can build an entire identity on having no meetings. There's an agency out there, there's a few of them that are known for this. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of head nods. You know them. Okay, that's their personality. They just want to focus on the work. They want to work asynchronously from a beach, and I love that for them. For me, that doesn't quite work as well. I'm very much like a one-on-one type of person. I'm okay with dealing with conflict, talking through it. Okay? I heard same. Okay, somebody said same. Right? So something that's going to be part of a principle that I want to express out to the world, the type of clients I want to have, are people who are not afraid of that. Because what's going to end up happening is, if I don't say this in the new business process or figure this out, I'm going to want in-person time, real time. The other person who, on the other side, who's a client, they might be averse to that. That's not going to be a good relationship. Okay? So make sure that your personality is reflecting the types of clients that you bring on. Okay. A few things. If you're like very averse to meetings, you can make your whole entire thing async. Okay? You can use the tools like the Calendlys, the QuickBooks, the Asanas, Mixmax, all that kind of good stuff. Okay? You totally can do that. You can build an entire identity based on that. Okay? Some of you all, to make your efficiency process move a little bit quicker, especially on the new business end, you might actually want to expand vertically. Okay? So if you're working with client A, think about the clients that they use or the ones that are complementary. Okay? Number 3 is if you are not a fan of educating clients in real time and you want to give them a resource, great, write a book. Ship it out. Post on LinkedIn. I love that. Okay? That's going to brand you a little bit more as like an expert in the field, which is a great thing. And you might get clients just by that. Be like, hey, these folks must be good at, they must have something figured out because they wrote a book, right? There's just that natural perception. Okay? Okay, any other ideas you all have tried that you want to share on streamlining process? No? I covered all of them? I'm perfect? You could say that. Okay. Last time I'll ask you to do this. Okay? Look back in this section of streamlining. Okay? And think about what's one thing that you'll promise you'll do in the next 2 weeks. Okay, a few more seconds. Okay. All right, so where have we been? We've talked about attracting folks. We've talked about streamlining. We've talked about scaling. Sound good? Are you all feeling like good? Was this useful so far? Okay, amazing. Let's go into Q&A. Any questions? What's up?
So one thing you brought up was getting new clients versus retainers. My question is, how do I prime my new clients for a retainer later on?
Okay, so the question is, how do you prime your clients for a retainer later on? Okay, there's a variety of ways to do it. Okay, it's a little bit easier for, I think, Webflow-related design and development because naturally websites need ongoing maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. My favorite things probably to do is if you discover that your client is driving at least, ideally, 100,000 monthly visitors to your website, ideally, you can run probably 2 high-impact A/B tests on that alone. So you can sell in A/B testing and say hey, it sounds like internally you all were really split, no pun intended, between this copywriting versus this copywriting variation that I presented to you, or this design variation for this design variation. Pay me to run the test, and we'll prove which one performed better. Okay, I wish more places, as they were transitioning a website over, that instead of going completely a full swap, that they actually A/B tested things one by one to actually show to the client, hey, I pitched you new design assets, and I can literally show you through our A/B testing that these are doing better, and then that builds more trust. Okay, but oftentimes I know, due to a variety of reasons, shipping something on time for some sort of end of year sale, whatever, they can't do that, just iterative switch. But try to sell them on switching over iteratively. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, what's up?
So I'm curious if you're trying to change niches for your audience. For example, we work with a lot of smaller businesses who want more bigger clients. How do you transition? And when your current portfolio is a certain type of work and you're wanting to move to a different type of work.
Okay, so your question is the context for your question is you have quote unquote smaller clients and you want to figure out how to attract bigger clients. First of all, I would question why you need to even switch over to bigger clients in the first place.
That's a good question.
Yeah, because it isn't as simple as ta-da, it's not that, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess my point would be our favorite clients are some of the bigger ones we've worked with.
Okay.
Just because they have bigger budgets, they have a full team and a better plan. Whereas a lot of the smaller clients we work with have no idea what they want.
Yep.
And so we're trying to move more into that space, but maybe we just need to set better expectations with the smaller.
I think, okay, so I think to answer your question, assuming that you need to switch over to bigger clients, I would just assume that that's correct. I think there's a couple things you can do. Number one is start a relationship with a small piece of business for that bigger client and grow that. And there's a lot of things that have to go right in order for you to make this happen. The client has to like you, it has to be effective, the budget has to have felt, so many things have to go right in order for you to do that and expand the scope. The second thing you can do is you can do something that UX onboarding, UX teardowns have done. Sam is a person who runs a UX teardown website, who's actually literally tears down websites, annotates and goes through an entire flow of a website like Netflix and dating websites, dating apps and stuff like that, and annotates them. And that, just by doing that, that positions him to show that he can work on bigger things. Just because there's a perception that because you're showing a case study or something or tearing down something large, that you can do that work. So it's essentially a long way of saying show that you can do the work. And some of the best ways to do that are auditing. Yeah. I would just audit random websites, throw it on TikTok, throw it on YouTube, whatever you want to do. Yeah. Create a newsletter. I'm seeing some head nods. You all like that idea? It's lit. That was actually a pretty lit idea. That's an example of me not planning something, but thinking on my feet. All right.
Also, it sounds really obvious, but are you sharing more of your case studies up front that are bigger clients rather than sharing the others? Are you consistently creating your own internal personal content centered around bigger clients so that when you pitch bigger clients, that's what they see? Sounds really obvious, but just...
Yeah, so Eve in the room, for those who weren't able to hear that, said that you should show that work as early as possible, like in your portfolio along the journey. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
So you said you were diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago. How is that diagnosis, like, has that changed your process or like how you approach design? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah.
I struggle with that too.
Yeah, totally. It has. It's allowed me to feel more comfortable shortening certain parts of the process, for sure, like the brainstorming, right? It's allowed me to feel comfortable telling clients, hey, just letting you know you're hiring a neurodivergent designer, right? There's some like aspects of my identity that are more obvious, right? I love bright colors. I'm like South Asian, but they might not know, that I have ADHD. And I actually think because it's a superpower, it's a benefit to a client. I'm comfortable saying it to them. So me saying, hey, I recently was diagnosed with ADHD. There's some conversations that happen where it's like on the client side, they're like, thank you for telling me that. You know what I mean? Like, thank you. I think it makes the relationship feel a little bit more vulnerable and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that you have to show all of your cards because we don't want to necessarily bring our full selves to work sometimes. But if you are comfortable doing it, I encourage you to do that. I think also if you're working full time or if you're in more of a corporate space in any way, you're going to have to reckon with, if you have ADHD or some other neurodivergence that you're living with, you're going to want to figure out if you want to tell your coworkers or not. I typically, in my opinion, in my experience, it's been more of a benefit than a detriment because then I'm able to tell people how they can create the conditions for me to thrive, right? So I don't just simply say, hey, I have ADHD, and then let them figure out, okay, great, congratulations. It's basically, hey, I have ADHD, so therefore, if you're having a brainstorm session, please put me in there, right? Or something else. Like these are the creative conditions that I want you to create for me to make that happen. Okay? I've actually coached a few folks that are autistic, and similarly, I've encouraged them to explain how their coworkers, managers, etc., can create the conditions for their identity to really thrive. So I think there's like a lot of ways to handle it, but again, I've found it to be more of a benefit than kind of a quote unquote hindrance. Thanks for your question. Anybody else? Yeah.
So you have a very wide set of skills, and so how do you sort of embrace that and make it a notable thing instead of feeling you need to consolidate and become like an expert in one?
Yeah. Okay. So the question for the online folks and other folks in the room who weren't able to hear that is, I have a wide variety of experience, and like, how do I essentially position it? How do I position myself in that way? Right? Like, I don't hide from the fact that like I haven't like risen up in the traditional ranks at like a Pentagram or something like that. I didn't go to like an SVA or a Pratt or a RISD or something like that. And I think a lot of folks that I do want to work with, they find that not as a hindrance, and they find it more as like totally fine. So I think like just like not shying away from it. Like, I mean, it's public, for crying out loud. It's on my LinkedIn, right? They're gonna be able to suss that out. The second thing I think is a benefit for folks that might be a little more generalist like myself is you're able to play a lot of different roles. Like, for example, like I know enough about certain aspects of like type design or something else enough to be dangerous, to know how long things should take in terms of the type design thing. So like if I get a quote back from a type designer, I'm like, that's a little steep, right? Or like that seems like it's gonna take a little bit longer. And like I know enough to kind of be dangerous. So that's how I kind of position it. The second thing is I'm able to like talk to the designers like about like A/B testing and train them up around that, versus I'm also able to talk to a CEO and how to manage up and stuff. So it's kind of like a nice place to be. Yeah. And also I will say that ever since I left Wieden and Kennedy, pretty much every gig that I've gotten has been me writing my own job description and giving it to the person who has budget power to say like, all right, thank you for this. This is weird. But we'll hire people around you to like plug in some of the other gaps or something like that. So I also encourage people to do that too, is like write your own job description. Cool. Anybody else? Okay, sweet. Let's keep moving on. Okay, so I want folks in the audience, okay, I want y'all to raise your hand if you want to chat with other people in the room at some point during the conference if you want to discuss high-value clients further. Swap advice. Okay, look around. make eye contact with somebody and be like, yes, you see me, I see you. Okay? I want you to challenge yourself. Okay? Either, I think there's like some sort of like lit party later, like maybe find each other there, or maybe before the executive AMA or something at 4. Try to chat, okay? You'll be surprised of how much knowledge is in this room, and I want you to be able to harness that. Make sense? Okay, how many of y'all want to talk about streamlining services with other people? Look around the room. Y'all are head nodding. Look, make eyes contact. Okay, last one, scaling your model. How many of y'all want to nerd about scaling out your model? Okay, look around. I see some of y'all have like raised your hands every single time, which is amazing. I love that. Okay? Okay, feedback time. Was this useful?
Yes.
Was this useful? Did you learn something new? At least one thing new?
Yep.
Okay, great. If you need help, okay, if you need like a marketing audit, if you want to like tear down your website, tear down your pitch deck, whatever, I'm here for you. Okay, there's 2 opportunities, okay? You can either email me. Can y'all read that okay? Ratish@usefulschool.com. You can email me. I'm available. This is part of my job. Okay, I love helping out other creatives, no matter where you are, okay, in your journey. Okay? I also have a QR code if you have other questions for me, if you want to talk more about like some challenges you might be having, just chatting one-on-one, there's like a little survey you can take. Okay? I will not spam you. All I'm going to do is read through that and see if I can answer your questions, and I will reach out to you before I go on vacation next Wednesday. Okay, you will receive just 1 email from me. That's it. I'm not trying to pitch y'all on anything if you don't want it. I'm here to be useful. Okay? I run a school called Useful School, not Annoying School. Okay? So I'm not going to sell your shit. I'm not going to sell your data, whatever. Okay? Thank you all. Yay.